Are you building a high-growth business in tech, healthcare, AI, media entertainment, or consumer goods and services? If so, we'd like to help you scale. Apply for a chance to win capital, coaching, and access to an amazing community of diverse innovators. Applications for the 4th annual Black Ambition Prize competition are now open. Don't miss your chance to win $1 million. Apply today at blackambitionprize.com.
The day that Will Packer called me, I actually wrote down, I will be presented with an amazing opportunity today. So it was almost like I felt like I had a little bit of control over my life, even though I didn't. But I just woke up every day like, let me write intentions and try to be positive through this process.
It's really interesting because I think oftentimes, as much as people say that they want to see that, I don't know if they really want to see it.
How does somebody go from being unemployed and virtually homeless to becoming one of our best-known celebrity bloggers with a budding media empire? Well, that's been the path of Necole Kane, but you probably know her as Necole Bitchie.
Former blogger and entrepreneur, Necole Kane. She's the founder of My Happy Flo, which is a period supplement brand.
I just want to say last year was terrible. I got turmoil in 2 businesses at the same time. And I was just like, I can't. And so when I left XO, I was like, you have to run this company differently. Or like you said, you're going to burn out.
You have heard of Necole Bitchie. Yes. Now Necole Bitchie is leaving her wildly successful blog behind.
I decided to do a YouTube video. It was called What I Wish I Knew Before I Left a Successful Brand. I just felt like I was failing. I think Essence sent out a newsletter and it said like, Necole Bitchie from boss to broke. I'm seeing all the commentary. I'm gonna cry. It was my worst fear to fail in front of everybody. And I felt like the world was seeing me fail.
Welcome, Nicole, to the So Ambitious podcast. You are media mogul, right? A serial entrepreneur, celebrity blogger. What other hats are you wearing?
Man, what other hats? I love that question. Super friend, queen of career pivots.
Hey.
I like to call myself that. Pain-free period goddess.
I love it. So, queen of career pivots. Yeah. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, so hi guys, my name is Necole Kane. But I started my career as people know me, as a celebrity gossip blogger. And I did that for 7 years and it was incredible, of course, a lot of fun. And then on my 7th year, I decided I wanted to do something more purposeful and intentional. And so I transitioned, I shut down the site, but I call it a transition, into xoNecole.com, which is a women's lifestyle and empowerment platform. And 2 years into running that, I sold it to Will Packer Media, ran by Hollywood producer Will Packer. And I stayed on for 5 years. And then on that 7th year of running that site, I transitioned out and I started My Happy Flo, which is a women's hormones health brand centered around the menstrual and hormone health of women of color.
Mm-hmm. Unpack the transition a little bit, right? And I love that you call it the queen of career pivots. Because sometimes people think that if they're pivoting from one thing that the brand that they've built, the only thing that they've known, that it's something negative and not positive. And so talk to us a little bit about your first platform, right? Necole Bitchie, which was a very public kind of public platform for sure in the storytelling and the way that which you did it. And then also kind of like an equally public kind of, I'm at the end of this because it no longer serves me. Yeah. I'm not serving people or my legacy in the way that I want. Talk to us just a little bit more about that journey.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I feel like I'm moving scared right now. Like even being up here on this stage, talking to you, I'm like scared of everything now, but back then I was so fearless. And so I feel like when you start something and you have nothing to lose, like I was already broke at the bottom. You just move differently, you know, before you have the kids, before you have the husband. And so, you know, I started Necole Bitchie with such a fearless attitude. So when it was time for me to transition out 7 years in, honestly, I wanted to do it 3 years in. I was over it by year 3, but it was like, what are you going to do after this? And so many people are watching, and it's so hard to make a transition when you've already proved yourself successful.
Yeah.
And then you have an audience watching you. And so I, put a letter up on my website the day I decided to like quit. I'm explaining why I can no longer do this anymore.
Yeah.
And it was just it was freeing, but I have never had so much paranoia in my life because I knew people were watching like, what you gonna do next, girl?
Right.
And so I like kind of rushed to start a new site, which was xoNecole. I put up xoNecole 6 weeks after closing down Necole Bitchie. So I had no time to rest, no time to heal or like just
or process why
like sit back, take a leap year, something. I just jumped into the next thing because I was scared to lose my audience. And so I was like, well, if I turn the switch, maybe they'll stay. But sometimes when you're like evolving, it doesn't mean everybody's going to evolve with you.
Right.
So some people weren't in the mindset to change from getting their celebrity news to now you guys are doing more lifestyle and mental health and talking about sex and all these things. And so it was difficult.
Yeah, there's a purging process that happens, right?
Absolutely.
So from a personal standpoint, and then also those that follow you, right? And so talk a little bit more about that.
But I just felt like people were like, yeah, girl, you gonna be back. And so something happened that I felt was very humiliating to me. And I sometimes tear up when I talk about it. I hope I don't now. But like a year into it, I'm always transparent. I'm always blogging and that type of thing. I think I watched a YouTube video. You were talking about who were you before you were interrupted. This is my interrupted moment. I decided to do a YouTube video and say, hey, like, it was called What I Wish I Knew Before I Left a Successful Brand. And I was just talking about how I was running out of money. Like this brand was costing me so much more to run. And like all the plans I had was like, I just felt like I was failing basically. And I put out this YouTube video and I might've went on a vacation or I don't know what happened, but while I'm on vacation, this video goes viral. And it's on everybody's website. I'm trending on Twitter. And like, I think Essence sent out a newsletter and it said like, Necole Bitchie from boss to broke. And I was just like, like I'm seeing all the commentary and that was my moment. I'm going to cry.
Don't cry. Take a deep breath.
It's crazy that I still cry because I felt the world, it was my worst fear to fail in front of everybody. And I felt like the world was seeing me fail. And not only that, but I felt like people were cheering the failure because they were so mad that I took something away that was a part of their everyday life. Like, they enjoyed coming to the website every day, multiple times a day and getting their news. So it's like, how dare you take this thing away from me that is a part of my culture, I guess. It was a cultural thing. And so I felt the world was parading the failure. And that's what gets me crying every time I talk about it.
Take a deep breath. Because your story and your journey, and as transparent as you've been, have helped so many, right? Do you feel, looking back, that it actually was failure, or it's just the ebb and flow of running a business?
Well, a year later, the news came out that Will Packer had bought my website, and I just feel like if they didn't see the low moment, then it would have looked like I'm always winning. Like, she goes straight from one thing, oh, now this Hollywood producer has come along and bought her site. It's easy for her. So looking back, I felt it was necessary to show a moment of, yes, you go through transitions. No, it won't be easy.
Yeah.
Like it's literally, I think I heard Lauryn Hill talk about how we always want to climb a mountain and stay at the top of the mountain. But like you can't get to the top of the next mountain without coming down off of one. And so it's like valleys and peaks. And so now I look back and say it was meant for me to do that publicly. And like I always say, you know, when you ask God to use you, you can't choose how he uses you.
Right.
He had to show that moment, which was a moment of humiliation for me. But he was like, I have a win coming the next year, but they need to see this first.
Yeah. And there was a process that sounded like you needed to go through too, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, I think, you know, talked to Brian Rakeem with Lightship Capital earlier, who also had like a very public moment in the company that he built. And it's really interesting because I think oftentimes, as much as people say they want to see that, I don't know if they really want to see it, right? Or at least experience it. Like I remember my husband and I, when we closed our store in Miami, that was a very public like closing. And we held on to like the pain and suffering with our investors, some partly because it was going to be something very public when we had to close our physical store. But then talking with elders, they're just like, no, you need to get past that as soon as possible. But like there's multiple mental hurdles that I think you have to go through when you're doing something for the first time, right?
Absolutely.
Or when it's as big as what you build, and you have the people that are cheering you on, but then you definitely have the people that cannot wait for the downfall, and they're louder than that.
So much louder.
So much louder. And so is there any other advice just kind of in that process, right? When you had to make some very serious decisions, and of course there were going to be the naysayers, but like, what is the thing that you said to yourself, or who did you surround yourself with to just kind of help you weather that storm, and kind of silence the criticism as much as you possibly could?
Not really, but I had moved to Arizona before to go through the transition because I felt like living in LA or New York, I was going to be around people who had an idea of who they were going to hold me to, this idea they have of me. And I was changing. I was evolving. But no, I started writing intentions every day. Like right now, what was going to happen to me? I swear, like every day I would be like, the day that Will Packer called me, I actually wrote down, I will be presented with an amazing opportunity today. So it was almost like I felt like I had a little bit of control over my life, even though I didn't, but I just woke up every day like, let me write intentions and try to be positive through this process, because I didn't know how I was going to make my next check. So I didn't know. And this is after having so much success. And during that time, I sold my car, I sold everything in my apartment. I moved to New York with one suitcase of clothes, and I rented a $600 apartment. And this is after like the success of 7 years of, but I had poured so much of my own money into this new brand that wasn't making any money, paying all the writers out of pocket, that I just started running out of money and didn't know what to do. But I knew I wanted to save my brand, and I was willing to do whatever it took. I do know while I was in that $600 a month, apartment, living with the rotating roommates, I was just like, please don't let nobody see me. Please don't let anyone see me coming out of this place. So it was just a very humbling moment in my life.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about the question of what's next, right? Because I think that's also a part of this process where you may not have an answer for what's next, right? Or like you said, it kind of forced you to jump into a next before you were ready. And I think I heard Sherelle talk about that on one of her episodes as well, like this pressure around answering the question, like what's next, and not having an answer, and also being okay with that. Like, tell me just a little bit about that process for you.
I think for me, if I knew, I was naive about what it would take to run a media company and the way I wanted to run it. If I knew and had did the research and really like did all the preparation, I would have never did it.
Mhm.
So maybe sometimes you have to like go into things with very naive, like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna figure it out when I get there. I'm gonna jump off the ledge and hope the parachute open. So yeah, that was what, and even, you know, running xoNecole for 6 years, knowing I was coming on my 7th year and not knowing what was next for me.
Mhm.
It was a lot of depression there because it was like, what are you, like, you've already sold this site, you signed a non-compete, you can't work in media or have a similar site ever again. What are you going to do when you leave xoNecole?
Mhm.
And I mean, that's how I got into women's wellness and health. But yes, that what's next is scary,
Mhm.
especially again, I keep saying this because I'm a single woman, and so I can move, I feel a little bit more freely. But when you have like kids that are reliant on you and the check that you're bringing home, you know, your partner,
Mhm.
like that's a harder decision. Maybe even parents you're taking care of.
Yeah. So you sold the company to Will
Mhm.
Packers.
Mhm.
What was that process of much you can share, right? Like
Mhm.
the decision, even though there was some ebb and flows going on for you, but the decision to sell your thing and see it exist without you.
Well, first of all, Will came to me, offered me a job opportunity. And it sounded like he wanted me to be like an editor-in-chief of a website similar to xoNecole.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I was like, wait, is this going to compete with xoNecole? Like, I don't understand. And second, I wasn't doing well with xoNecole, so I'm not going to go mess up your money.
Mhm.
Like, I'm still trying to figure this out over here. So I told him I wasn't interested, and I knew 5 people I could recommend him, but every month he would come back. He would call once a month, every month. And finally, I just wanted to know what the opportunity entailed. And then the conversation switched over to them buying my website. Now, I didn't even know what an acquisition was. I had only knew one person that had ever sold a company, and it was Lisa Price, that looked like me, like a Black woman. And she got so much backlash because she sold to L'Oreal, a white company. So I didn't know anything about what that entailed, what that would mean for me, what that would mean for my website. I knew I wasn't going to get as much backlash because he was a Black man, and a lot of things he do, his audiences are Black women. So it made sense. But yeah, that's how the conversations kind of progressed. And that summer I said I moved to New York and sold everything. It was the summer I was going through negotiations, but I knew I had to have a plan B in case it fell through. Then in my mind, he's coming out with another site. He's going to find someone else to run this site, and it's going to compete with mine, and I'm not going out like that. So just in case, I'm about to humble myself, sell everything, move to New York, and we're going to figure out how to make this successful with or without Will Packer.
So you stayed on for 5 years
after I sold the site, which is, most people only stay on for a year or two. My original contract in negotiations was for 2 years, and I asked for 3 because I just feel like the first year, acquisition is like getting married to somebody you never dated. Like,
it's like a shotgun marriage.
Like, you never dated them, y'all haven't courted, you don't know like what their likes and dislikes, you don't know conflict resolution style.
None of it.
And so, yeah, that first year I was like, okay, what's supposed to happen? But yeah.
How does it feel to see your baby exist without you?
It's hard. It's like you said, calling it a baby. It's like you birthed a baby, birthed a child, you raised it for a little bit, and then you handed it over to someone, and they're raising your child, and you're hoping your child doesn't come back home and talk back to you. And they still have the same values. They still have the same morals and the vision that you have. So I don't follow xoNecole across anything because it just was it was hard, like, for me. But I do, again, Will is such an amazing man. Like, I used to get on a bus, like, if I was to go to a set of one of his movies, everyone that mentioned him had such great things to say about him. I had never met a person and I think I could have went through many acquisitions, but I feel like they did the best they could to make me feel comfortable in this acquisition. And so, yeah, I'm still happy with my decision, because honestly, if they never bought my site, it wouldn't be up today. So, and that's just the truth. Yeah.
No, I understand that on a deep level, because people ask me that about, we sold Black Tech Week, our conference, and I found out with my husband 2 years ago. And people were just like, how do you feel? I was like, I feel fine. I feel great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel FOMO. I don't feel, and that's how you know it's time.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then to be able to see something exist without you and live on, it's hard.
Yeah.
But there's no feeling that like I want to, if they ask me to come back, I will come. Like, absolutely not. Like, it lives on beautifully.
Yeah.
And there's a legacy, which is what you mentioned. Lisa Price, that's what she talked about. She's like, I sold my company to one of the biggest beauty brands in the world, and people felt some kind of way. And she was just like, that was success for her, was to sell. And so success looks differently to everybody of why they started it and what the ending was supposed to look like.
Absolutely. I mean, your ego might be like wanting to feel needed, right? Like, it's a site out there with my name on it.
Yeah.
That I'm no longer a part of, right? But yeah, I'm glad that I was able to build something that can live beyond me. And I hope to continue to build companies that can live beyond me. That's the goal.
Yeah. So tell us, okay, so from queen of career pivots, right? We're talking about like now like the third or fourth pivot. Tell us between that last one to now My Happy Flo.
How that all came about. So My Happy Flo, it's funny because when Will came trying to buy my site, I was studying holistic nutrition and I wanted to help women with their health back then. So I got a little rerouted, but a great reroute. With My Happy Flo, that good child. So My Happy Flo, it stems from my parents died very young. They were 41 and 42 when they passed away. I have no living grandparents. And so what ran in my family was heart attacks, strokes, every health condition out there. And they'd go through surgeries, they'd go through, be on a bunch of medications, more surgery, more medications, and it would always end up in death. And I was like, there has to be a better way. And so I think I was around 35 when my period went missing. And I'll tell you why that's important later on, because people are like, well, your period went missing. But that was an indication that something was going on with my health. And so went to a holistic doctor. They nursed me back to health through a vitamin blend. And that was the first time, like I said, my family has always been on medications. She gives me a custom blend of vitamins and I feel amazing. My period returns, all the things. So I got very interested in how we can heal through whole foods and vitamins, how we can change our lifestyle. And so I studied holistic nutrition, I studied hormones, and that's how I ultimately came up with the ingredients in My Happy Flo. I found out that, first of all, your period is your fifth vital sign. So like when you go to the doctor and they take your blood pressure or your heart rate, like your period is just as important. That's why they ask you, well, when was the last time you came on your period? Because if it's irregular, if it's painful, if it's heavy, if it's prolonged, it's a sign that you have hormonal imbalances. And if those hormonal imbalances aren't addressed, they turn into conditions like fibroids.
Right.
And you know, like they say 50% of African American women will have fibroids before the age of 50. So to me, it was very important to launch My Happy Flo, not just because it's a all-natural product that helps women have pain-free, symptom-free periods through balancing their hormones, but also we're reducing risk of fibroid tumors. We're reducing risk of breast cancer, PCOS, endometriosis, and all these different estrogen-dependent conditions. So
the holistic health benefit is going to help so many, has helped so many, right? Is there another deeper why to why this is what you're working on right now?
I just, honestly, every brand I've curated has been for Black women, of course, all women, we have all customers, but I formulated this blend with Black women, especially Black women that have fibroids in mind, because they are vitamin D deficient. They do have anemia, iron deficiency. But the deeper part was every friend around me in my late 30s was getting diagnosed with fibroids. I'm the only one out of my friend group, and there's so many of us that has not been diagnosed with fibroids. And when I took a deeper look at it, and a few of them had hysterectomies, and they weren't given any other option. It's like, I want to take your uterus, right? And I was like, this doesn't make, is this an attack on Black women? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this our only option? And one thing I noticed out of everyone that was getting diagnosed was birth control. And when you look at birth control, I know we sometimes talk about products and the hormones or xenoestrogens, or clean beauty is very big right now because people are getting educated about all the chemicals that are in our products that are causing hormonal imbalances and all these other health conditions. Well, there's synthetic hormones in birth control. And so, And so I realized the hormones in birth control was accelerating fibroid growth, or putting people at risk of post-pill PCOS and all these other things. And I'm like, wait, but that's what the doctors give you when you have fibroids. They normally recommend birth control. Or when you're a teen and you go to the doctor and you have period pain or hormonal acne, sometimes they don't even test you for anything. They just say, hey, this birth control will regulate your period, when it really doesn't. So this brand to me is more about educating women on their bodies and their hormone health, because we can, when a woman heals herself, she heals her daughter, she heals her granddaughter, she heals the women around her. So now when I see mothers and they come to me and they say, my 13-year-old daughter is on My Happy Flo, I'm like, 20 years ago, she would have been on birth control. Right. And then 20 years later, she would have been dealing with fibroids, infertility, all these different reproductive health conditions.
What have you taken from your first two brands that you incorporate into this?
I think just community, listening to my audience and learning the pain points of women who look like me. When I was Necole Bitchie, I'm in the comment section and I could tell there was women that I was giving them junk food, but they wanted the vitamin. And so that's what made me transition over to xoNecole, which was more empowering content. And then we have xoNecole, and all these, different writers are writing about their periods and fibroids and PCOS and all these and I'm like, wow. We feel so empowered when it comes to our finances and elevating in our career, because it was during the time all the girl bosses was coming up, but we feel disempowered when it comes to our health. Yeah. And there's so many women that are suffering in silence with different, you can go I'm in a room now full of women, and I know there are women that are dealing with fibroids or some type of reproductive health condition, because that's how the stats are set up. So I think for me, it's been always seeing a void, seeing a need, and how can I fill it?
Do you feel with this company that you have set a new tone, set a new expectation on how we should be caring for Black women? Or you feel like you're still trying to disrupt it?
I need to be a little bit more visible in this season. This is a season, I've taken a year off from speaking again. This is probably one of my first speaking engagements in however long, because just, sports team, they have off seasons where they can heal their bodies and all that other stuff. So I think from me losing my parents and all this trauma and grief, I was over-medicating. I was overworking as a form of medicating. I wasn't taking the time to really heal from those traumas. I think a lot of things I've learned about hormone health, especially what I just told you about birth control, if that's all we've known for so long, like trying to get people to unlearn that, the amount of feedback that's going to come my way as I start talking more about that, especially in a Roe versus Wade society. Now I have to talk about, well, they'll say, well, what's the alternative? Now I have to teach women how to fertility awareness and how to track their cycles and how to know when they're ovulating and how to look at their cervical mucus and know when they're fertile, you know. But it feels like a lot and it feels heavy, you know. But sometimes your purpose has to be way greater than your comfort zone. And so I'm just preparing myself for, like, God gave you this calling. You have to answer the call. You have to go out there and you have to be more vocal and visible and teach the people.
Yeah. How are you putting your armor on to get ready to do that?
I don't know. It's a lot of journaling and just, I think that's why I needed this season away from the speaking engagements, away from the podcast, to just get my mind right.
Yeah.
Because if not, I'm ready, but I wasn't ready a year ago. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you, when you need to take a break like that, right? Or you've launched a company where your name likeness is still that, right? People want to see that, but you also say, you know what, in order to do that in the future, I got to take this break now. Can you just unpack a little bit of like how you do that? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, but specifically a lot of female entrepreneurs that are the face of their brand, struggle with that, and then it leads to burnout, which I've been through burnout twice, so I know what that's like. I don't wish it on my worst enemy,
Oh,
right?
my goodness.
But can you just talk to, like, were there certain systems you've put in place? Were there certain strategies you had to think through? Or you just like, Felecia, like, I just went cold turkey. I just gotta like leave, because there's a balance to that, right? And you gotta figure some parts out of that, otherwise the thing can potentially fall apart.
Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit more insight on that?
Well, I just want to say last year was terrible because I was, you know, coming out of xoNecole, and there were some things going on that just I couldn't wrap my head around. But I was also going through something personally with My Happy Flo, kind of like almost like a legal issue, but not, because I had started the company with a friend and we didn't work out.
Okay.
So I got turmoil in two businesses at the same time. And I was just like, I can't. And so when I left XO in September of last year, I was like, you're going to have to, originally I was trying to run My Happy Flo like a media company. So I was about to be right back on that hamster wheel, doing all these workshops, doing all these events. And I was like, you have to run this company differently. Or like you said, you're going to burn out. And so I took a step back to put processes in place. I switched manufacturers so that our supply chain, like the amount of time between production, got very shorter. I put a fulfillment center in place. They ship out the product for me. So all I have to worry about is marketing. And we put all these email flows in place. So as long as I get the customer to the website, or if I collect, like, your customer is rented until you get their text message or their email. Now they can be your customer. But other than that, you're renting it from social media or any site that has gotten them to come over. So for me, I had to get that funnel together. And then now all I have to do is get people in the funnel, which I can do through ads. That was a big fail, but that's a whole other story. In my season of not wanting to be visible, I wanted to try ads. That did not work out for me.
Oh, listen, that's a testimony of quite a few people.
I put a lot of money in paying an advertising agency. And I'm like, these little 2 sales, I could put up an Insta story. You know what I mean? Like, I just paid you $15K. And I'm getting 2 sales a day.
Facebook ads is a trap, man.
I'm going back to hustling on social media, like, because this isn't worth it. So yeah, so I put all the things in place so that I could take that break and kind of just take the time to, like, just recenter myself. And also, I will tell you one thing that changed my life is it was called a soul coach. I did soul coaching, but what she did was help me figure out my soul's desires. And she helped me figure out what's the end goal. Where do I want to end up? What do I want my family life to do? I want to be married? Do I want to have kids?
Mhm.
What do my days look like when I'm waking up in the morning? And that literally dictated how I was going to grow my company.
Right.
I realized I'm probably going to have to hire a CEO. I don't want to be the CEO because I envision mornings with my kids,
Mhm.
you know, pouring into myself. I envision, you know, going to soccer practices and that type of thing. And so when you know what you're working towards, it's easier to make the decisions to get you there. I would have tried to raise money really quickly if I didn't go through that soul coaching.
Mm.
But now I'm like, okay, the moment I raise money, I'm back in a situation where I have bosses and
Right,
people
right.
to answer to again. So how long can I bootstrap this so that I can live my life a certain way and run my business a certain way with a certain freedom?
Nice. I love that. Soul coaching.
Yeah, it was called soul coaching.
I love it. No, I mean, so
Yeah.
many of the things you said around setting the intention,
Mhm.
like the flow of how you want the day to be, knowing that if you decide to go this route, which might be easier, right? Getting the capital to give you the runway, but it's going to come with two things that
Oh
are
my goodness.
non-negotiables for you. And so that's really helpful. Last question. Any last, and I feel like soul coaching might have been it, but like any last advice that you want to share around women that are getting ready to go on their wellness journey in whatever way it means for them? Anything that you want to share from your journey that you think would be helpful for them guiding theirs?
First, I want to go back to your last question real quick and just say, when my first two businesses, I just felt like how you getting in an Uber and telling them you want to go to California, but I never told them the address in California I want to get to. So I don't know where I'm going to end up. That's what I felt like with my first two businesses, because I didn't really have a game plan of what's the exit strategy?
Yeah.
Where am I trying to end up at? And so I just felt like I was on autopilot to a destination I never chose. Like when I started My Happy Flo, it's like, okay, if you want to get this in the hands of as many women as possible, what is that gonna mean? What type of money do you have to raise? And if you raise money, we don't talk about this a lot. When you raise money, you're planning for an exit.
Yeah.
How are they gonna get their money back? And so there's all this uproar in especially in the Black community about when someone sells, but you were cheering when they raised 25 million.
But don't understand the flip side of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But their investors has to get the money back. So if you see someone raising money, just know that they have plans to either sell their company or go public one day. But how many women? I only know one woman that went public, and that was Kathy Hughes,
Mhm.
a Black woman.
Yeah.
Kathy Hughes from
The
Radio One
phenomenal
and
story,
Interactive.
yeah.
Exactly. So going back to your last question, I just had to say that real quick.
Okay. So my last question,
Yeah,
because
the
I feel like I
last
have
one.
to ask you this.
Yeah.
I mean, who is Necole Kane uninterrupted?
You know what? She's still trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
During this year off, I was uninterrupted because I was able to enjoy my friends. I was able to date for the first time. Like I'm running these business for years and not even allowing myself the opportunity to connect and find a potential partner.
Mhm.
I want the uninterrupted Nicole. I'm working toward, look, it's October, it's scary season, but when I say scary season, it means doing the things that scare you.
Yeah.
I want to see me on more stages like this. I want to see myself showing up on social media and sharing my truth. That's who I am, uninterrupted. So right
Nice.
now I'm kind of interrupted because I'm still kind of like,
Figuring it out.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because here's my thing. If it costs you your piece, it's too expensive.
Right.
But if you're putting any information out that's going to change someone's life or change the way they think, you're going to get the feedback
Mhm.
loop, and that's not peaceful, but it is what it is.
It's unfortunate, fortunate sometimes, an unfortunate part of that
Yeah,
process. Of
Yeah.
putting yourself out there.
Especially when you go viral. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tell the audience where they can find you online and where they can continue to follow you in your journey.
Everyone can find me at Hello Nicole, HELLONECOLE, across all platforms. You can find My Happy Flo at myhappyflo.co. And that's Flo, like when we used to be like Aunt Flo is in town, FLO. And that's across all platforms as well.
Nice. Thank you so much. Please give her a round of applause.
Heineken is proud to support Black Ambition and helping to unlock opportunities for its participating founders.